The following accounts to the story link up to prior events. The following prior events are detailed in the documents below, as we are currently investigating this case. Any further information will be greatly appreciated from any other sources, but at the moment, it's still a pretty cold case. Without further ado, here's the story. This may be good for debriefing. It had been a long day and we just got off the bus. Me and my 4 other friends, both media fanatics, were basically in a situation. For our college project, or university project for that matter, we were aspiring directors and creators alike. And needless to say, we wanted to get to work immediately. We wanted to blow our university's professors' socks off with our production. I had 4 friends with me in our group. It was Harry, Sam, Joe, Alan, and me. We had all been pretty much inseparable best friends since the very beginning. Since our first days at first school all the way to where we were now, a university, making our own large-scale production to show to our professors. This would be our final project, and we wanted to go all out. We picked a couple locations for our upcoming production. As a matter of fact, the locations we picked in retrospect were all really good. I'm surprised we even got any low prices for most of the places we were able to get to. Sure, there was a lot of paperwork I had to fill out, but in the end, I knew this would be worth it. The story to our upcoming production was that an artist was struggling with making his own endeavors and making a bank off his work. He would constantly sell weird cursed paintings that would be responsible for many catastrophes throughout a small little town. The locations we would use would be an abandoned diner of sorts, or abandoned cafe rather, and we'd also use houses, mainly prop houses, which of course were also abandoned, as not to bother anything else. We also managed to have access to a private corner of our local town, which oftentimes didn't really like to be filmed, even if it was for a regular production with actually qualified producers. The first scene that we would film is that of the artist in his house. The opening would be quite gloomy, which meant we had to film this at night to get the best coverage, to at least make it look somewhat horrifying. If we could capture any rain and storms, then that would probably be better, considering the fact that we could do a lot more that way. Joe, my friend, then turned to me. So, let me get this straight. You're telling me that someone actually has to go in there? Dude, listen. We don't even have anyone to cast the role yet. We're only picking out these locations, so don't get too excited. Sam then chimed in, telling Joe to shut it. Those two were bitter rivals, even though they were friends, just like the rest of us. Those two specifically always did have a knack for getting on each other's nerves, even if it was only as banter at times. Sure enough though, Joe did have a point. We didn't have any of our actors yet. So, we waited, and eventually we got 3 other people in our group. We actually knew these 3 people, not too well, but well enough for them to help us out with this project. We eventually did all the other scenes, and were left with the one where the artist would then walk into the cafe, order some things, and have a dialogue with another actor who would apparently not show up due to various reasons, which would then leave the new up-and-coming artist going home in a bit of a strut. Now, you could say that everything was going great. After all, nothing particularly bad happened until we went into the cafe. It was empty, no one used it, and was actually about to be completely rebuilt into something else, but we managed to get access to it for this task, or general production. We then decided to go along with everything as we should, collecting different shots and composing them. It was a little hard to make this cafe look at least a little bit more brightened up and somewhat clean, but we eventually got through it. Now, from what I heard from my friends while I was doing something or other outside, the two actually heard noises while setting up. Whether that be a camera equipment or anything like that, they said that in a certain part of the cafe, more or less the cooking area with all the ovens and stuff, that strange loud noises began to materialize out of random places, some even echoing out through the walls. Harry, my other friend, was however the most scared when it came to random occurrences happening. After all, he did tend to think more of the paranormal and also be 10 times as more affected by it than anyone else, although he would try to play it off as nothing truly happening. He actually did state, though, that he did feel uncomfortable when he went to the upstairs part of the cafe. There was a little roof area where he could access a viewpoint, and that's actually one of the shots we needed to look down when the artist enters the cafe. Harry told me, however, that while he was actually setting up the camera position, something brushed past him, and when he went to look, the door shut itself, leading the entrance to the stairway and going downwards to the main floor of the cafe inaccessible. Joe then turned towards Harry, immediately getting ready to joke about how scared he was, when Sam, again, the more level-headed one, and also the type of person that would take any chance to humble Joe, would say, "Look, listen, we get it. He's terrified. Let's move along, people." Joe would then reply with a grin, saying, "Nah, you're no fun, buddy." "Ain't that right, Harry? He's just a big old clown." Harry, not knowing what to say, merely shook his head. I stood there, just taking in everything that I just heard, when Sam turned to me. "Hey, Lucas," that was my name, for any future reference in case you want to understand that, then said the following. "You've heard about the tale about this place, right?" "No," I said, not understanding what he was going on about, although curious nevertheless. "Well, apparently the locals here believe of a strange urban legend. Actually, it's more of a creepy story to keep kids away from abandoned areas such as this. Not that it worked, mind you." "Yeah, I'll say." Joe then replied with a huff, stating the fact that he had explored many abandoned areas when he was a kid, and nothing weird happened to him. Harry then, taking the moment to enjoy the lighter moments of this conversation, snickers a bit. Joe also joining along with his faint smile creeping on his face. Nevertheless, even though the topic of ghost stories were pretty entertaining, we knew we had to get this done. The three actors then came eventually, and because of that, we were able to get the rest of our scenes done. Everything was looking pretty good, until we had to do the scene where, just as the artist leaves, he finishes a painting and hangs it up on the wall, which then curses this cafe, and as you can imagine, doesn't bring about a very happy ending to the artist either, when he visits it. Nevertheless, we do that, and as the two other friends in our group were setting up everything else, that of course being Joe and Harry, that left me and Sam. We were with one of the other members of our crew, the actor, when all of a sudden a loud crash was heard, directly from where the kitchen was. Me and Sam both approached cautiously. We don't want to perhaps get harmed by anything such as a rabid animal or something maybe that found its way in. All that was down there, however, was a metal tray that was on top of a fridge. We were immediately relieved, when all of a sudden we heard a faint whisper. It was coming from the walls. I went over and put my head close to it to see if I could hear anything. And sure enough, I heard a voice. It called out to me. It said my name. I thought this was perhaps someone playing a prank on us, maybe even Joe and Harry getting into something. But even Sam thought the same thing when he heard it. And as we went to look near to where the doors were to get out of here, we noticed that one of the actors were missing. The person that was in the cafe with us. Sure enough, we look everywhere and call out his name, and he just didn't respond. Now, this was beginning to seem really sketch, and we actually thought that this was an elaborate prank. But the more and more we looked, the more and more we couldn't see anyone. We were alone. There was no one else in the cafe, nor outside. And come to think of it, there were no cars either. Now, I knew that this was an empty part of the place we were filming in. After all, the cafe wasn't that far away from the emptier parts of town and on the side of a road, but still, it just didn't make any sense. There would at least be some cars driving by, and that's when I noticed it. The film equipment. It wasn't there at all. I turned to Sam, and even he didn't notice. At first, anyway. He then pointed it out, and as soon as he did, I was instantly just terrified. Without thinking, I ran towards the doors, shaking them, but they were locked. Oh god. They were locked, I thought. Is this really how this ends? Do I get stuck in an abandoned cafe with whatever haunts this place ready to chop my head off, or even worse? I then look towards Sam, and when I do, he's just as shocked as I am. I then frantically rush around the cafe looking for some extra entrance, and sure enough, there was a back door. Now, do you want to know the thing that scared me most about this? It wasn't the fact that I was also locked in. It was the back door. Now you may be thinking, why would you be so scared of the back door? That would be your savior, right? Well, wait until you hear this. The cafe, we would know, considering we looked around the place, never had a back door. Never. Yes, there was one walled-off section, but it never had a door leading to anything at all. We looked at the door, contemplating whether to open it. What lay on the other side may not be salvation, but a thing much worse than hell. But at that moment, I said screw it. Me and Sam thrashed open the door and ran outside. We were outside. I looked back, and there was no cafe, just rubble. And then the stench hit my nose. The smell of what could only be described as dead, decaying bodies hit my nose, and then hit Sam's. We both recoiled, and as soon as we looked to our left, towards the other part of the rubble, there lay 5 dead bodies. The 3 actors, they lay sprawled out across the rubble, one of them missing an eye, the other completely headless, and the other, the one in the middle, the one that we were with, had something protruding from his chest, a large grey spike, similar to that of a meat hook. And then there lay my 2 other friends. One was still bleeding but alive, with part of his head caved in, and then my other friend, completely motionless. We were able to call an ambulance and luckily save Harry, but the same couldn't be said for Joe. Joe was dead since the very beginning he stepped outside. The past couple of weeks have been rough. I've been getting therapy, but no amount of therapy can stop me from seeing the disgusting and downright horrible dead corpses of my friends. Even now, when I talk about this, I get cold shivers when I hear someone call my name.